All right, folks, I'm headed to work here. I went to CrossFit this morning and absolutely could not film a video on the way back because I was absolutely decimated. Felt like I was gonna pass out on the drive home because I was wrecked. I have the Insta 360 going. I've seen it's already rotated on top of my car with one turn, which is great. So we'll see. I'll figure it out when I go to put it together. I'm going to go to Reddit for a topic, and it's going to be about, well, the person's, I guess they're asking a question, kind of talking about some experience, but it's going to be about engineering management and someone sort of burnt out from that career path. They're still quite young, so I assume they probably had a similar-ish experience to what I've had, because I think they said they're 33. They're 33 and they've been an engineering manager for 12 years. Like, they started before me, which is nuts. But they're talking about essentially a lot of the aspects about the job that they really enjoy. So they're saying, and I think they've kind of moved on to senior management as well. So even for me, for context, where I used to work before Microsoft, they didn't have what we would call like a technical director position. You have to recall it was like a startup and we were still really defining these types of things. So I had peers that could go from engineering manager to director position, but because my title was technical manager, they literally didn't have a thing above that. So it would have been impossible to promote me. Since then, things have changed. Like, I've had people that reported to me that have director positions and stuff there, which is great. But I technically would have been in like senior management or senior leadership if I would have stuck around there. At Microsoft, I have been sort of remain stuck in limbo mode with middle management. So I have literally been a middle manager for almost 13 years now. So this person from the Reddit thread even has some additional experiences in terms of role that's kind of above and beyond what I have lived through from the perspective of a title, but probably some things I feel like I can at least relate to. So they're saying, the collaboration, the strategy, all these things are things they really enjoy, but because where they're working, the organization itself has like really evolved. Company culture is very different. They're kind of saying like, look, like it's a huge pain in the ass, and like they're burnt out from trying to like, things are getting reorged. They're trying to make sure that they can find like, I don't know, like business value for the teams under them to go chase so that they can, it's almost like there's just like a lot of politics and bureaucracy at that point. And they're like, look, like, this just doesn't seem like what it was once upon a time. And, I think that's something I can relate to for sure. And not even necessarily from the same spot, right? Like, for me, going from a startup that was extremely fast growing to Microsoft, which is already like an enormous company, right? That's me entering a company that already has a lot of the bureaucracy and a lot of, the reorg stuff happening. Like, it's just there. And there are certain things for me, and obviously, like, I'm not pointing fingers at people or, specific details, but there's certain things for me where I'm like, that just feels like, it would eat away at my soul if that's like what I had to focus on doing. Right. So if I were up in more senior management and I had teams of engineers with engineering managers that reported up through me, if business priorities were changing, like, I could imagine being in a situation where it's like, look, like this business group under you, like, there's been an executive decision that we don't need that part of the business. So like, go figure out what you're going to do with it. Right, which is either, like, unfortunately layoffs, or are you able to make a case for staffing up other areas? And like all that kind of stuff is like, I'm sure would absolutely eat away at you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this kind of thing. in this video. I'm going to start reminding people that when I'm going to Reddit for topics, this one is from Experienced Devs, the subreddit there. If I remember, I'll put a link to it in the comments or the description. And if I forget, if someone else would love to do that, I would love that. So thank you so much. And a friendly reminder as well, if you watch these videos and you find them helpful, like if you want to share that back to Reddit, I do all this for free. Fortunately, this channel doesn't cost me much money except for the equipment. But even between this channel and my main channel, DevLeader, the editing costs on DevLeader are not even covered from 2 YouTube channels. So I literally lose money to try and put out as much educational software engineering content as possible. So just spreading the word helps. And that way, if more people find it helpful, then I can continue to grow the channel. And one more quick reminder, if you want questions answered, leave them in the comments. And otherwise, you can message me again. Look for DevLeader on social media. I'll keep your identity anonymous, and I'm happy to try my best to answer. So, okay, so when I think about engineering management, yeah, like I can definitely agree with this person. Like the things that I enjoy are the strategy parts. Now, if you're, I've noticed, especially in some situations as a middle manager, I end up getting removed from that sometimes. And that is absolutely like a, what's a good word for that? Like something that disengages me, right? Like if someone wants me to lead a particular area, but they're not going to like sort of include me in the strategy, that feels very bad. And for context, like I recognize that there's probably some people that are engineering managers watching this, or even potentially above, but probably most people I would gather are more junior developers, that kind of thing. As a middle manager, if you're not getting some part of the strategy, right? If you're not doing some part of that, what effectively is happening is that someone else is making those decisions. You're excluded, and now you have to somehow find yourself very much on board and in agreement with those so that you can try to get an entire team rallied behind that. And you might imagine that if there is a sort of expectation around the direction of a strategy and you're not in line with it, how much more difficult is that going to make your job to try and get a team rallied behind it, right? Like, they're not going to be, like, if you're not behind it, they're going to be able to sense that, like, that it's just going to be a little bit rough going forward. So in my opinion, it's like a setup for bad team dynamics. And especially as an engineering manager, like I would be very disengaged if I couldn't be part of that. There's some things, don't get me wrong, I absolutely understand there's going to be like organizational priorities, or the business might have to shift. Like, I'm not saying that like things can't change or that I have to be part of every decision, but if you give my team a charter and then I am not allowed to help come up with the strategy for how to achieve that, then like it's almost, what do you want me to do, right? Or how do you expect me to do my job effectively if I can't be part of that? It's really just like one-on-ones with people and trying to make sure that they don't hate what they're doing, and me crossing my fingers. So it's a bad spot to be in, but I would, I can imagine for this person, if they're like, the reason I'm bringing it up is that if they're in more senior management, they're even saying that they're spending sort of time doing like this other type of work, which is, how do I go find business initiatives for these groups, right? After reorgs and things like that. So like, that's also, you're not getting to focus on driving these initiatives. It's almost like this, I don't want to say it's arbitrary work, but it's just like, I don't know, extra overhead that no one wants to have to do. Now, I'm sure this person wants to make sure that their teams are supported. That's why they're feeling burnt out from having to do this kind of stuff. But no one wants to be in that situation. I can't imagine that anyone enjoys it. They're like, finally, a reorg, we can go make things great. They're probably like, damn it, a reorg. Like, what are we going to do about this? How do we make this situation not absolute shit? So I can imagine that's stressful and not something that people look forward to. Again, as a middle manager, if I've been part of reorgs, and it can be kind of weird, right? The dynamic changes a lot. When I started at Microsoft, not long after my manager, who was, a great manager, he moved on to a different team. And then I didn't have a manager, right? Like my team, the sort of the bigger umbrella over my team, didn't have a manager over it. It was just me that was managing one part of it. So it all bubbled up to my skip level, who I guess temporarily became my direct manager. And that's a weird dynamic, not because he was bad or anything. He's actually an amazing, I thought he was an amazing skip, and he's an amazing leader. But the challenge is, like, I'm not automatically, like, I am not elevated into the more senior position, right? So there ends up being this disconnect between, like, how he's operating at his more senior level and how I'm operating. But I still need to somehow keep things going. A lot of the time, unfortunately, a lot of shit falls on middle managers to, like, go figure it out, right? Like, you're literally in the middle of trying to help your teams, all the individual contributors, execute, get things done, help them, do their best work, make sure they're growing in their career. But you're in between that and then whatever else is going on as part of reorgs. Right? So I had people that were more, much more senior engineers that suddenly lost their skip level meetings and stuff. So they're like, hey, these were opportunities where I had really good visibility and things like that. Now they're vanished, because the other part that came after that is we had a new manager that came in. She was great, but then we moved to a different organization, and our skip level was brand new. And then the product management organization changed. Like, there's so much change that it's like, it makes it very difficult to, and I don't know, like, I'm talking about this from a few different angles. I don't know from the engineer's perspective if a lot of them noticed. Maybe there was enough shielding for some of the junior developers where they're like, I don't really care, like, it doesn't really affect me. I know the areas of work I have to work on. I feel like supported by my direct manager, so, like, who cares? And I had actually hoped for that, because I don't want them to be, like, distraught from all the change. But I would say the more senior engineers are like, hey, what's going on here? For more context, when you are at a higher level in your role, and I've talked about this before, this is going to be different at different places, but I know for sure at Microsoft, for my more senior engineers, I can't just put them up for promotion and say, I think this person should be promoted, so we're promoting them. I basically have to say, I think this person should be promoted. Here's all the evidence to support it. And then sort of, like, give that over to my manager, my skip level manager. And then there's a conversation that happens with an audience that is, I don't even know who they are, but I'm assuming my skip level's peers. And I'm not part of it, which is the really difficult part, right? So the whole thing being, like, at some level for engineers, at least where I am at Microsoft, the decision-making process to go beyond that, I literally don't even get to go represent my engineers. And, like, I don't like that at all, because even though it would be really hard, I would love to sit in the room with those people making the decision and have them grill me. I would love for that. It's a weird thing to say, right? But let me put it the other way. I don't even get to have the conversation with them. And the point, and I think the reason for that is, they're like, look, it's not that we're doubting what you're saying, but, like, if we don't have enough visibility into the impact that this person's having, then we don't deem that they're even at that level, because the impact isn't sufficient. But I really struggle with that. Now, to tie that back to what I was saying, when you get reorged, the people that are in that conversation are going to be different people. They're going to be new people. You would hope that there's some amount of consistency so that you don't feel like you're getting a reset. But when there's new people or different people, that conversation's a lot harder because it's like, hey, have you seen, the impact that this person's having? And it's like, well, no, I haven't seen shit. I just started. Right? Like, it makes it really difficult to try and make that case. So I think for more senior people, when they're seeing reorgs, they're kind of going like, I've been trying to build up visibility, trying to build up, they're working on things that have impact, and they're trying to make sure the right stakeholders have visibility to that, and that changes. But tying it back to what this original author was saying on this Reddit post is like, that's the kind of shit, in my opinion, I can't stand spending time on that. And, I will die on this hill, but like, I think that is the absolute biggest waste of time ever. And I'm saying that fully recognizing like this is an expectation, at least where I work. I understand the rules and the game. I get it. And I'm sure there's lots of other places like this too. But I think that it causes people to put an emphasis on a lot of things that I couldn't give less of a shit about. Because that feels like 100% politics and bureaucracy to me. Now, the people that are in those more senior management positions that are making decisions around that, I am not in that position, right? So like they may have, and I'm sure they do have a very different perspective as to why. But I see the amount of work, time, and effort that goes in from these individuals to try and ensure that they're getting visibility. And I've seen it fall flat. And to me, and when I say fall flat, I mean like, not because they weren't trying and not because I think they were doing the wrong things. I mean, somehow it just didn't make a difference anyway. I can say that, even for me, in terms of when I've been put up for promotion. So like I just feel like there's a very large disconnect, and then the way that mechanism works, I don't feel like is conducive. But that is the type of thing, like when I think about management and leadership, what comes along with the role is like, I don't like spending time on that stuff. I don't want my employees spending time on that stuff. To me, it feels like such a distraction. Now, I say all of this as I'm ranting in a car. I don't have off the top of my head, I don't have like here's the solution for it. So yes, I am just complaining about it, but I'm trying to acknowledge that there's aspects of the management role where I'm like, these things don't feel good. They're part of the job. That's the kind of stuff that if more and more of my time, so if I was a more senior manager and I had more people reporting up to me, and I had more situations where it's like, hey, we're trying to put this person up for promotion, and like me trying to help more people with that, I could imagine that would tire me out. Not because I don't want them to succeed. It would tire me out because I would be frustrated by doing it. So some of if I could talk about some of the good stuff, because you might say, well, why the hell are you a manager if everything sucks? That's not what I'm saying. I actually love a lot of different aspects about management, but I think the strategy part that I mentioned, when given that opportunity, is great. It's I really enjoy being part of that. It's an interesting intersection, I find, because it's you're working with product owners. Sometimes, depending on the team and stuff or your organization, you are also the product owner as an engineering manager. And then you have input and influence on architecture. Again, depending on how your team and stuff is set up. But historically, I found myself in a situation like that, which is cool. And like I don't sit there and just like I make the decisions, do what I say. Even if let's say in whatever team setup, if I have the final say on if I am the product owner, if I have the final say on architecture, I'm still working with everyone on the team or the right stakeholders to make sure there's alignment. I'm not like doing it in isolation, but I enjoy those parts. I really enjoy, and I talked about this in other videos, but I really enjoy like the mentoring part, helping people grow in their careers. It took me a long time to realize like the type of impact that has. And I mean, if you watch a lot of my videos, like kind of like what I was saying earlier, right? Like I don't make money from this. Actually, I literally lose money making YouTube videos. It takes a lot of my time. Like I make depending on the week, like 10 to 15 YouTube videos a week between these vlog entries and between my main channel. And it costs me hundreds of dollars every month on top of that in editing fees. And I'm not saying this to complain to you. I'm saying this because like you would say like, why the hell are you doing it, right? And it's like, because it's rewarding for me. It feels good to try and be able to help. I enjoy it. So what I'm doing in all these videos, it's structured differently, right? But a lot of the topics we discuss and things like that, like these are sometimes similar conversations or similar topics at least that I would have with some of the engineers on my team, right? Depending on what they are. So being able to help people navigate challenges, coach them, mentor them, like giving them the tools instead of like giving them the answers and then watching them grow through that it's like that's super, super rewarding. And again, I think I talked about this in the video from yesterday. So time frames are all messed up on this stuff when you're watching because you don't know when this video is posted. I don't know when it's going to be posted compared to the other ones. But I was talking about this idea that like when you're mentoring people, like even as a senior engineer and stuff, like you might not realize the impact that has, or you might not feel like it's very valuable because you want to just focus on coding. And I absolutely get it. Like I love to code. And when you don't, I think one of the challenges is like when you don't notice how impactful it is to be able to help others, like truly help them grow, you're like, it's like kind of feels like a waste of time. Like I can't get my job done. But when you do a good job with the mentoring and the coaching and stuff, like you're literally multiplying the impact, right? And helping someone kind of grow and be able to have better trajectory in their career. So I think, yeah, it took me a long time to notice that and just kind of repeating that. It's a part that I do really enjoy. What else? I think when we talk about, so this person, okay, let me kind of go back to the article, right? So this person was talking about like, what do they want to do now that they feel so absolutely burnt out from doing this? They were saying like, I want out, but they still want to remain in like tech. So my thoughts are, first of all, if you like the type of thing that's being done, but you're burnt out from specific things, I would say like maybe switch companies. Go to do the same role, but switch companies. Right? I'm sure not every company is constantly reorging and stuff. So maybe switch companies. Maybe switch companies to something smaller, where the reorgs, if they're happening, feel like there's a good reason. It's because the company's growing and it's like, this doesn't make sense anymore, versus sometimes reorgs at bigger companies are like, it's cost savings or just like realignment because there's so much like extra fluff because it's grown so massive. So maybe a smaller company, but I mean, if this person likes the role, I personally wouldn't give up on it. I understand that they're burnt out, but I think it might be where they're at, like physically at the company. I can't imagine, because they listed out some other roles and stuff. I can't imagine that going from a senior manager to like a middle manager would be a step in the direction, because you're going to go from don't like the reorgs to like, guess what? Like, you're not even part of the decision-making process. You're kind of just like the shit umbrella for the rest of the team. Middle management is not a good spot for this kind of thing. So I don't think for them a good move is to go back to like middle management personally. They talked about some other types of roles, and I think maybe there's something interesting here. So they were like, what about like a product manager? And by the way, like, my goal with talking through this is not to say like, oh, just because someone was a senior manager, they can obviously do the job of a product manager easily. Not what I'm saying. I just mean in terms of the interests, okay? So just want to clarify. I realize that on the internet, everything is a touchy subject, and if I don't add a disclaimer to everything I say, someone will get upset. Probably thumbs down my video and not explain why. Don't do that. If you're gonna thumbs down my video, at least write me a mean comment or something so I understand. Otherwise, I don't know why you're thumbs downing it and I can't make it better. The idea of a product manager in terms of what their interests are, I think is interesting. Being able to talk more about the product strategy, I think could be interesting. Again, a lot of orgs, when you have product management, you might have a similar type of thing going on where the higher up in product management, you still find yourself like you're a product manager, but also a people manager kind of thing. Again, this is entirely dependent on how organizations are structured, but are you going to find yourself in the same position at some point where you're in senior management for product managers and you're dealing with reorgs and that kind of stuff? I don't know. Are you going to find yourself in positions where there's, oh man, I don't know if the 360 camera probably won't pick it up, but the guy in front of me or the girl in front of me, their back right wheel is like, it don't look so good. The tire is all over the place. Like, I really don't want to drive behind them. So we will change that in just a moment. So one sec. Let's get away from them. What if you have things like product lines are being cut, products are being merged? I don't know. Like, I feel like at some point you're going to run into the same shit, but perhaps there's some good runway where you're kind of like taking a step back from sort of the more senior, closer to exec role and getting a bit of a, I don't know, like a reset on responsibilities. Like, that might be an interesting opportunity. They also said, though, that like they like to code, right? So one of their concerns was like, my coding skills have rotted. This is a fear of mine as a manager, right? For the first 8 years as a manager, I was also coding at work. So I managed smaller teams. I sometimes managed multiple teams that were small, and I would still code. The more people I managed, the less I was writing code. And then at Microsoft, so for almost 5 years now, I don't code at work. I manage more people, but I code every day outside of work. I love to program. So for me, like, not coding at work, I'm like, I don't give a shit because I know I'm going to be coding at home. Like, I still have that opportunity. Not everyone likes to do that. Not everyone wants to. Not everyone has the same schedule that I have, which is totally fine. But for this person who went from manager into senior management over their career, they're like, look, like, my coding skills gone. So they're even like, okay, do I go back and, I don't know, like, this one to me seems a little scarier. Like, do I go back and just like brush up on coding and kind of start from there? I don't know. It would be hard for me to answer that. Because I don't know how much of a passion they have for that, because that's truly, like, for those of you that aren't aware, like, when you're going into management and then especially going into senior management, the amount of like hands-on coding time like should be essentially zero at that point. I would have no expectation that someone in senior management is writing code. Just zero. Not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying there would be zero expectation of that. So yeah, I don't know. It's just like that's a really big change. But if that's really what they love to do, then perhaps. But you know, for me speaking from my own personal experience, like my goal is like as long as I have an employer, is to continue to work towards senior management, because I would like to be more and more involved with strategy and have impact at a broader level. I've spent, like I said, almost 13 years helping other engineers in their careers, and I have almost 13 years of experience being a manager. I would like to help other managers. I think I'm very able to do that. And I think I could have a very big impact helping other managers. So being a manager of managers is like, that is my goal, at least for the next step, right? Now, with that said, the only other path that I have in my mind is not being employed by an employer. It would be to have my own software company. And if that happens, it's a complete reset, because if I have my own software company, you bet I'm going to be doing all of the roles. Like essentially like it would be CTO style role. I'm going to be writing code. I'm going to be doing architecture. I'm going to be doing whatever needs to happen. This guy's blowing stuff everywhere. But I'm not going back to a coding role unless it's for my own company, is essentially what I'm saying. Which at some point in my career I'd like to do. Like I don't think I will feel fulfilled in my, I don't know, like my entire career journey. I don't think I will feel a sense of true fulfillment until I've built something for myself. And I realize this video is taking like a huge tangent and stuff, but hope you're enjoying it. But on that note, like, you know, where I was working before, obviously not like I'm solely responsible for it, but like where I was working before, that company got bought for $2 billion. They went public and got bought back to private for $2 billion. So I made or helped two people basically have more money than they could ever spend in the rest of their life, and was a part of that journey since the beginning. And I've seen a lot of the shit that goes into building a company. Obviously there's aspects to it like sales that I am not good at, but in terms of growing engineering teams and stuff like that, like I lived that. And I would love to do it for myself instead of doing it for other people. And I think that would be a sense of fulfillment. Like, hey, if I can do it for someone else, I should be able to do it for me. The difference is that I did that when I was younger, and now I'm bald and I'm old. I got white in my beard. Just gotta make sure I have enough energy for myself to do that someday. So, moral of the story is, I think if you're reflecting on your career, where you're at, if you're not totally happy, I think it's good to do a bit of a reflection and try to figure out what your next steps are. Taking a step back or doing a role change or whatever, don't look at that like a failure, because if you're so burnt out that you can't even do your job properly, or you hate going to work every day, I would say that's not a good spot. Change that. So thanks for watching. If you thought this was cool, if I remember to link the Reddit thread, I will try. If you want, you can go look on Experience Devs subreddit if I haven't linked it. And if you thought that this was helpful and you want to share it back there, I would appreciate that. Like I said, you know, not making money from these, so it's really nice when people can help spread the word and help grow the channel. So thanks so much. I'll see you next time.